So this session is aiming for top scores in math and English. Now, IBDP exam prep masterclass. As we know that IB is a very rigorous pre-university college program, and the rigor is because of the emphasis on the skills, which are research skills, problem solving, analytical skills, etc. It's a very meaningful session because a panelist, Nick Pillow, Vibhu, and myself will be sharing some tips how to manage this comprehensiveness of an IB program in terms of the syllabus content, the examination techniques, and the feedback. How do we have to work the kind of grade descriptors? You're going to find some of these very efficient in terms of planning your studies and meaningful learning. IB, in fact, many times as educators, one of the very unique aspects of IB is its assessment structure. And that makes it very unique compared to any other curricula. And that's why IB is also very respected in the universities for their higher studies. For the scholarship it brings along with the high superior skill sets of assessment structures which they're exposed to from IB. It's important to understand how to manage those things and how to study productively and efficiently, and I hope you're going to find some of these things very, very useful. And our focus will be giving you some of the assessment ability, the capacity to manage these courses, and math and English, because these are compulsory courses and everybody studies, so we thought let's just do it in math and English. I myself, Yogesh Dhingra, alongside with me is our panelist Nick Pillow and Vibhu Sachdeva. And I'm going to introduce the panelist here. Myself, I am formerly head of math and director academics with Dhirubhai Ambani International School, work as consultant with various international schools and currently on the advisory board of heritage schools. And also I'm an IB examiner, workshop leader, etc. And since 2000, and founding teacher at Ambani, and overall almost more than 3 decades in education. Nick Pillow, he's our lead instructor for English, and he splits his time between Bath and Mumbai. And I've known Nick from a long time as a friend and a colleague from the Dhirubhai Ambani International School, where he was a former head of performing arts and very revered teacher and respected. 15 plus years of experience teaching English and drama. He holds a degree in English literature from University of Cambridge, holds an M.Teach from University of London Institute of Education. He's been running IB programs for us and IGCSE and some pre-IB courses for exam preparation intensive courses. He also is he's also the director of Laughing Pillow, and also been working with Jeffrey Goldberg acting in studio. So he has many other interests besides teaching, which keep him passionate about English and drama overall. And Vibhu Sachdeva, our lead instructor for math. She's bachelor's in math and minors in economics and master's in mathematics from St. Stephen's College in Delhi University. Very passionate about research in math, and many of our students really flourish in their research with her for math exploration extended essay and also a high level advanced math courses. She has research interest in abstract algebra, differential equation, graph theory. I'm going to just talk a little bit about the background of CourseLeap for some of the very quickly, not too long, just giving a background for some of the new parents and students that CourseLeap Education. I'm founder of CourseLeap Education and very delighted to have all of you this evening. Our mission has been to empower students and academic institutions focusing on excellence through academic principles. We understand the background of students from diverse backgrounds they come and how to contextualize and make learning meaningful based on the background, their goals, their capacity, and holistic learning experience. How to address the skill and gaps, and also advancement programs for students of varying abilities and inspiring them to achieve highest academic standards, leading to admission in universities. CourseLeap prepares students for academic success in upper secondary and beyond, accelerating their abilities and maximizing potential through very meaningfully curated course structures and plans. Now, there are a range of programs which you can see because students are interested in their academic advancement, particularly in upper secondary, and they want to make sure they can make the most advancement based on the kind of paths they start figuring out for the universities and majors and careers they want to do. Of course, we focus on our flagship courses, which are IB programs. You can see on the top, which are school preparation, personalized tutoring, and also Head Start and exam prep courses, right from pre-IB to exam courses, research-based courses also for all internal assessment, etc., under complete academic integrity through through our IB examiners and workshop leaders. And we also do math programs, which are international math Olympiads, which are again flagship courses. We also do some advanced competition and entrance exams, including UK entrance exams, AP courses, and some of the higher end university courses. So we're going to focus on the top here. This event today, or the masterclass, is mapped to our IB flagship courses. And IB Excel is the whole journey of IB, taking them through right from the summer before they start the courses to all the way to exam end courses. The full support is provided and guided by qualified IB experts. And you can see we will be talking a little bit towards the end about this, but you can see there are full-term courses, full-year courses, IB exam, pre-IB, guidance for extended essay. All those are available for based on students' requirements, and student results have been really, really spectacular each year. Just some of the stellar, results you can see from the kind of background students come, right from Dubai to some schools in Switzerland to within Bombay and outside within India and abroad. You can see we have many students who have really done well. And we can share the brochure with you later. But this has been for the last many years, since 2017. Our students have gone the best of grades and gone to the top universities. Very impressive journeys of students with us. And within India and abroad, we can see some of the schools where our students come from globally and nationally. They come from. It's listed here. And I'll not spend too much time, and I'll really quickly come and take a little bit deep dive into our programs right now. It's very important to understand pace, depth, and breadth of IB programs, what to study and how to study, where there's a syllabus breakdown, paper-wise expectations, exam patterns, formats, mark schemes, rubrics, grade descriptors, how to get those top grades within that, and what kind of planning, organization, and preparation strategies are going to be meaningful. So let's just move and switch gears to another session, which is on math. How to ace IB math. So we're going to talk about some of the assessment structures, and then we'll talk about a little bit about grade descriptors. Nick has talked about some grade descriptors in English, and we similarly have some on the lines for math. And we're also going to share, after the discussion about the assessment structure and objectives, we're going to have some demonstration with from discussion to demonstration of some of the practical strategies which are useful by taking a few examples across all the papers. Now, this is a visual diagram which will help you understand, because I think here parents and students in IB would know that there are two streams of math, which is analysis and approaches, and application and interpretation. Now, AA stands for analysis and approaches as an acronym, which is written on the slide, and AI is for application and interpretation. Now, in high, we have AA and AI both offered at higher level and standard level. So on the right, you can see there are some exam patterns of higher levels which have been described. There is paper one, there is paper two, there is paper three. Now, higher level has three papers, and also you can see in the center there is a common internal assessment, which is common across AA and AI in standard level and high level. Now, for high level, paper one is 120 minutes and 110 marks. Now, this carries a 30% weightage. Now, 120 minutes to 110 marks means about 110 minutes, and 110 marks would mean 1 mark for 1 minute for 1 mark. And then you have some extra couple of minutes to go back to some questions which you find difficult. That's 30%. Paper two is again 120 minutes, 2 hours, 110 marks, 30%. Paper three, you can see, is a 75 minutes and 55 marks. Now that's one of the one which is like culmination of all your skills are seen in paper three. More extended problem solving with focus on proofs and reasoning for AAHL and focus on statistics and modeling for AIHL. Again, I'm going to continue calling AIHL for application interpretation and AAHL for analysis and approaches. Now the weightage is 20%. So you have 30% for paper one, you have 30% for paper two, you have for paper three 20%, and then you have to write internal assessment, which is 20 marks and 20%. That means 1 mark in internal assessment is going to be 1%. Now, in the limited time we have, we may not be talking about too much on the internal. We are not talking actually at all about the internal assessment, but you can see this is also a very important part in terms of scoring and acing your IB math. So for higher level student, paper three and paper exploration itself is 40%. And many times in your school, you might be spending a lot of time on paper one and paper two, sometimes without really focusing on paper three and the math exploration. And together that call is about 40%. And that many times up to grade 11 or beginning of grade 12, we don't sometimes focus, and that's extremely important. Now, standard level is 90 minutes, 80 marks, paper one, weightage is 40%. Paper two is 90 minutes, 80 marks, 40%, and then 20% again for math exploration, which is internal assessment. So that's how the assessment model looks like. Now, some things, because there are four different options we are talking about: AAHL at higher level, AASL at AA at standard level. Similarly, we have AI at HL and AI at SL. Now, the paper one of AA and you can see, and paper two. So for paper one for AA course, it is split into short questions and long questions. Going back, it's a 2 hours, which is split into section A and section B. Approximately, it is because 110, it could be 45 to 55 marks split, or about 50 to 60 marks. That's the kind of split. And there is no graphic display calculator for paper one. Paper 2, again, section A and section B, and then graphic display calculator, which is there for paper 2. Now, paper 2 is only calculator based for AA, while paper 1 is a non-calculator. And for AA, paper 1 and paper 2 both have short questions and long questions. Now, AI pattern is different. Paper 1 is just completely short questions. You can see there are no long questions there. But AI, use of graphic display calculator, is allowed for all the papers. So you can see for AI, paper 1, 2, 3, they were all given access to graphic display calculator. Paper 2 in AI doesn't have short questions, it has only long questions. So it's important to see how many questions. So when you're planning strategies, etc., so it's important to see how much each long question is about. How much time does it take to do, those questions. So some of those things, when you're practicing papers, you can see. Now, paper 3, which is only for higher level of AA and AI, has only long questions, which are 2 questions for 55 marks and 75 minutes. Now, it's like everything what you know in math is going to be tested. What you've learned up to your age of 17, 18 could be in your paper 3 in the form of 2 questions. So it's 55 marks if 2 questions, so split could be looking like a 28 and 27 marks. It's important to see the meaningful connections in such a long question, which you're going to take, because 75 minutes split between 2 questions. So that's how we plan how much time. Now, if you look at the grade boundaries, many a time students think that use of graphic display calculator is going to be easy for them, and their marks are going to be better in paper two for AA. Or sometimes students think that taking an AI course at higher level is going to be easier than taking a higher level that AAA course. Now, this is a kind of myth when you see, I'm going to say, because the use of graphic display calculator doesn't simply make it easier, because the questions and the problems are set in a manner which require you to master some of those mathematical concepts where optimum use of graphic display calculator is important. So learning the graphic display calculator just by playing with a few features is not going to get you the top grades. It's the optimum features, and it is research which says that your concepts need to be strong to be able to use graphic display calculator well. So unless your math is good and concepts are good, we don't easily get the best grades in paper two. In fact, year after year, we have seen the grade boundaries average of paper 2 in the AA course is less than the paper 1 without the calculator. And it is also an evidence in the form of here, like you see at the grade 6 and 7 of paper 1 here, on the last two rows, if you can focus, grade 7 boundary 75 to 110 for paper 1 without calculator. Now, if you go to paper 2, which is on the third from the left column, if you see there, again at the bottom, you see the grade boundary 73 to 110. That means if you get 73 to 110 marks, which are lower than paper 1 marks for 75 to 110, the grade boundary for paper 2 is lower than paper 1, because these are percentile based and averages, you can see the getting marks, 7, getting a 7, you can get a 7 with a 73 in paper 2, while for paper 1 you need 75. Now, in terms of, so this was the point which I wanted to bring across, that just the use of graphic display calculator doesn't mean that it's easier to get the marks, or just having an AIHL course doesn't mean it's easier than AA course. It's just the orientation is different, expectations and problem solving are also different. Now, great descriptors, when we say, extremely important. When we say IB is a very, with a high emphasis on problem solving, communication, thinking skills, it is seen in the form of assessment. So many times, by the way Nick explained about the, some examples and also showing with the assessment rubrics, it's extremely important to understand, because yeah, and how it is going to unfold in each of those papers. These are the kind of descriptors. Of course, to do well, you need very knowledge and comprehensive understanding, extremely important, but it is thorough knowledge and understanding. So if you see some of the things which are underlined in terms of the pinks there, they're highlighting the level of proficiency you have to achieve in those descriptors for top grade. So if you need communication skills, if you need problem solving, if you need how you integrate knowledge across different concepts, whether you have a trigonometry and you have a functions and you have calculus, how you integrate for problem solving, but at what level you have to demonstrate that. If you're using technology, you can use, of course, the calculator, but are you able to use calculator in a challenging situation? That will get you 7. You have knowledge, understanding, you know the content, but do you have good knowledge and understanding, or do you have thorough? Now, Nick Pillow also gave an example of, how you want to go deep or you want to go broad, right? So IB has breadth, of course, it also has a depth. So the good, you understand good knowledge and understanding, but how thoroughly can you do the problem solving and apply those concepts, that will set you for a 7. Now, you use reasoning and interpretation, math arguments for constructing your arguments, but can you use at sophisticated level? Can you use problem solving in unfamiliar, challenging situations? And can you write effectively and concisely? And this is how it looks like. So those assessment objectives, the rubrics, are spread across different areas. Now, if you see paper 1, which is, if you see paper 3, for example, for higher level, knowledge and understanding is 10 to 20% only, you can see, while this is a percentage focus in a paper. Now, inquiry approaches goes up to 30, because that means a paper 3 is going to be really based on a lot of investigation, proofs and conjecturizing for AA and modeling and interpreting, which is all inquiry things which are needed. So simply knowing the content will not be enough for paper 3, but how to apply that, read through the carefully, is going to be extremely important. You have an exploration, you can see inquiry goes up to 35. So knowledge and understanding is important, but you can see how it is split across paper 1, paper 2, paper 3 and exploration. How the weightages are unfolding in terms of the different rubrics is important to see that. Communication and interpretation, for example, would be in paper 3 is up to 25% and exploration also up to 25%. Technology, of course, is high in paper 3 and exploration, etc. But it's important to understand the rubrics, and that's something which so any papers also you practice, please make sure you analyze those papers also very well to see how you're going to ace those top grades. In fact, I remember long time back a small anecdote that my son, of course, by the grace of God, he's a good student, but he had another friend who got 45, and both of them went to good universities. And his friend got 45 on 45. And I asked him, Araman, that 45 is spectacular. How did you manage a 45? Of course, my son also did well, but 45 is something really at next level. He says, actually, IB, because students are all smart and good, you have to just, it's all about cracking the assessment criteria. And if you figure that out through the papers, through that, and how to do that, I think it will be much easier. So understanding IB scoring, where are the marks, where are the correct method, answers for accuracy, clear reasoning are marks, follow through marks, and of course, answer given. These are some of the things which are used across the marking schemes also. Now, I'm just going to have from this discussion to some practical examples, which Vibhu is going to take you through. And some of these examples are also taken the common areas of improvement from the errors discussed in the examiner reports. So this is exactly from how the examiner report explained, and she's going to take some examples to show how these, the comments can be well used. So over to you, Vibhu. Should I stop sharing, Vibhu, and will you
Yes.
share it?
Yes, I'll share. All right, so let's go over some of the recurring trends in the errors and some areas of improvements. As Mrs. Dhingra said, these have been analyzed from the past examiner reports. The first one being rounding answers to an incorrect degree of accuracy, or sometimes early rounding or intermediate rounding of answers. So we should know that unless otherwise it is stated in the question, all numerical answers have to either be given exactly or correct to 3 significant figures. And coming to the intermediate rounding of answers, sometimes what happens is we start rounding off at every step. And due to that, the errors accumulate and you get a final answer which is a little different from what is expected. So in order to overcome this error, that's a common error, it's important to save your answers in the GDC wherever possible. So I'll just show how we can do that on the GDC. So you can store your answers as a variable and use exact values for the next parts. So I'm just going to go to the calculator. So let's suppose I want to calculate the value of cos inverse of 0.8. So I'm just going to input that into the GDC. Make sure your calculator is in the correct mode, whether it's radians or degrees. So we'll do cos inverse of 0.8. So I want the answer in radians. I'll keep it to that mode. Now this is the answer I've got. So now if I want to do any following calculation using this value that I've got, instead of taking, let's suppose 0.64, I would take this answer and I will store it as a variable, let's say A. Now for any following parts, I can use this variable directly, and that would save me of rounding off errors in the exams. So I'll just put down here sign of A. I get the answer, which is the exact answer that I get using the exact value from the previous step. Now, if I were to, on the other side, on the other hand, if I were to use the rounded off value from the previous step, I'd make it 0.64 instead. So the answer that I get, the final answer here would be different when rounded to 3 significant figures, and that can lead to you losing marks if these errors accumulate. So this is just one case, but if this follows through in some more steps, then the errors would accumulate and you might get an answer which is completely different. So this was one. Coming to the next area is logical presentation of answers, which seems to be an area of struggle, especially when it comes to the calculator questions. Just because a question is to be done using the calculator, there still has to be some form in which you show your working and your method, because as highlighted before, there are method marks, there are reasoning marks, so you have to show your methodology, you have to justify your answers. All of that counts along with the accuracy marks. So just giving the answer is not enough. So I'll just take this example here, which I've taken from probability. So let's read it together and let's try to see how a logical presentation of this answer would look like. So it's given in Happy Land, the weather on any given day is independent of the weather on any other day. On any day in May, the probability of rain is 0.2. May has 31 days, and we have to find the probability that it rains on exactly 10 days in May. So reading the question, can someone tell me, does it ring any bell of what concept it's related to in probability? You can unmute yourself and say it. That should be okay.
Yes, come on, students, take a chance.
Anyone?
So there's something about combinations, Vibhu, in the
Okay,
chat.
combinations. Anyone else? Grade 12 students, if you're here and you've done probability. All right, so I think I'm going to move on. So let's discuss and I can explain. So for those of you who don't know, this is related to binomial distribution. So a binomial distribution is used when there are fixed number of trials of an experiment. So here each day is a trial, right? So because May has 31 days, so we have fixed number of trials. And each trial has only two outcomes, success or failure. So in this case, on any given day, it either rains or it does not rain. So rain becomes the success and not raining becomes the failure. So this would follow a binomial distribution. And we want to find the probability of raining on exactly 10 days, which I directly do in the calculator because we have a function for binomial distribution. So I'll just take you to the calculator. So here, if I go to distribution, then I can go to binomial. Let's look at the setup. So I want it to be equal to. Now looking at the parameters here in the calculator, you have x. So x is the probability that I want to find, which is the number of days it rains. That is 10, given in the question. Num trial is the number of trials. So we said that May has 31 days, and those are our trials in this case. So 31 is the number of trials. P represents the probability of success in a binomial distribution. So that's a parameter. So P in our case would be probability of raining on any given day, which is also given in the question 0.2. So just looking at those values 10, 31, and 0.2, I can get the answer directly. So let me just go to the results. And on top, if you see right here is the probability that we need. So I could do it fully by the calculator, but the question is, how do we present answers? So let me go back to the slides now and let's write it down. So anyone wants to suggest, because we have gone through it a bit fast and maybe some of you don't know this, but do you want to take a guess of what should be the first step when you show your working? You can unmute and say it in case anybody has any suggestions. Okay, let me write something and then you tell me what's wrong. So I'll write probability of x equals 10 and I'll
I
take
think
the
we have
value.
an answer, Vibhu.
Yeah,
There
I'll
is
just,
some answer there. I think this is also good try. VA is a good
okay.
try. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just write what's sent in the chat. So it's 31 choose 10, 0.2 raised to 10, and 0.8 raised to 21. And then, okay, so you've broken down the formula for the probability because we want to choose 10 successes out of the 31 trials. So you use combinations there. And 0.2 raised to 10 implies that you're basically multiplying 0.2 10 times for the 10 successes. And 0.8, which is failure, you're multiplying 21 times. So that works out, right? And then you can write down the answer that you got from the calculator. So I'll just quickly check what that was. So we got 0.0418, right? So I'll just write down probability, let's say x equals 10. is 0.041889. And what another person had sent, so we can write that also. Okay, so now what is missing? I've written both the forms of answers. Is there anything missing that needs to be there? Is anyone speaking? Okay, so I'll just discuss through. So for the second form of the working, I think that makes sense, but you would have to show evidence that this is a binomial distribution. So make sure you write that it's a binomial distribution. For the first form of working, if I talk about, then X, I have not defined what it is, right? So I would have to define X as a variable, that it's the number of days it rains. And then I'll have to still talk about that it's a binomial distribution. So if I quickly can go to the mark scheme, so we can see how to present your answers finally. So you can see at the top, you see the variable defined, X is the number of trials. Then you would have to state that X follows this binomial distribution where the parameters are 31 and 0.2 being the number of trials and probability of success. Or you could write this, which somebody had sent. So that's a good way to show that it's a binomial distribution. And finally, you give your probability. And not to forget, the final answer rounded to 3 significant figures also needs to be there. So defining your variable, defining your distribution, writing the expression for the probability, and finally the answer rounded to 3 significant figures. So those would be the steps of presentation. If you miss out on any one of those, you don't get the method marks. So that's the idea. Now moving on to the next one, which is also an area of struggle, is improving the quality of graph sketches. So curve sketching seems to be an area which is, just one second. Yeah. So curve sketching is a common content for both AA and AI, and in fact, it shows up in functions as well as in calculus. So what is a good strategy to sketch appropriate graphs? So let's take this as an example. Here we are given two functions, f and g, where f is a linear function and g is a quadratic function. And on the same axis, we have to sketch the graph of f divided by g, and clearly indicating the x-intercept, asymptotes, etc. Case of this one, what would be the first step for you to start sketching?
Can we like put asymptotes and stuff?
Okay, all right. So we can put the asymptotes. In fact, put all the key features down, not just the asymptotes. So in this case, if you see if it's f over g, it's a rational function, you know, the roots of the denominator become the vertical asymptotes. So here I can put down that x equals 0 and x equals, let's say this point is b. So I'll take x equals b is are the two vertical asymptotes. What else? Do we have any roots? Can we say where the numerator is 0 is where the entire function would be 0? So the root of the numerator becomes the root of the rational function. So here, this is a root. Let me label it as a. And now what has happened, I've identified all the key features that exist. We can now start sketching, but the strategy that you have to follow here is that using these key features, divide the entire domain into intervals, right? If you try to sketch all at once, you can make mistakes. So take those intervals and sketch the part of the graph only in that interval. So if I look at the interval that goes from 0 to a, you can see that the function f is negative and so is g, right? So if both are negative, the ratio is going to be positive, right? Now we know it's an asymptote at 0 and it has to meet the root at a. So we have to know that the graph would be something like this, because it has to be asymptotic to x equals 0 and it has to meet at a, right? And it's positive. So it cannot go from negative infinity. So that's your strategy right there. Now analyzing from what happens from a to b, f of x is positive, g of x is negative. So the ratio would be negative. And then you can see there's an asymptote at x equals b. It has to meet a at the root. So you have to make it like this because asymptotic behavior to be shown. And also it's negative, so it has to go to negative infinity. Now there's one part of the graph which can be missed. So what happens when x is greater than b? So you can see both are now positive. So again, the ratio would be positive, right? So it stays positive, but both are if both that denominator is a quadratic function, numerator is a linear function, denominator goes increases faster, you could say. So as a result, the entire function would be decreasing. And since it remains positive, it will not cross the x-axis, and that's your graph right there. So if you sketch in intervals, you will never make a mistake when it comes to curve sketching, whether it's functions, whether it's calculus. The strategy remains the same, that first you put down all the key features. Second, you sketch the graph in intervals using those key features which help you divide the entire domain into intervals. So that's the strategy here. Coming to the next one is unpacking a multi-step problem, which is an area of improvement. But would we have time to go through it, or should I just move on?
I think you can just quickly tell them a little bit how to unpack by noting down the variables, and I think.
Yeah. Okay. So I've taken this example because sometimes word problems are a bit hard to decode. So we can look at this example, which is a related rates problem, where you have to read this question, then we'll see what steps are needed to be decoding this problem. So it says a plane is flying parallel to the ground at a height of 4 kilometers, passes over a radar station R. A short time later, the radar equipment reveals the distance between the plane and the station is 5 kilometers, and the distance between the plane and the station is increasing at the rate of 300 kilometers per hour, right? So the moment you read the question like this, you have to sketch a diagram. So that's the first step of unpacking this problem, that you sketch a diagram. So let's say this is the radar station, this is the plane, and then it's 4 kilometers vertically above the ground. And then it's given that the distance between the radar station and the plane at a particular instant is 5 kilometers. And then the plane keeps on moving horizontally, right? So the distance between plane and radar station continues to increase. And we are given that the distance between the radar station and the plane is increasing at 3 kilometers per hour. And we have to find out at that moment, how fast is the plane moving horizontally. So I can denote a variable. So we have to now define variables, which is the next step. So x would be the distance between the plane and the radar station. And let me define y to be the horizontal distance, because those are the rates of change that I'm looking at. Now, what we do is, next thing we do is we write down the information given. So we are given that, sorry, just give me 1 second. Yeah. So we are given that x is the distance between plane and the radar station. So rate of change of x is given, is 300 kilometers per hour. We want to find rate of change of y, right? Because we want to find out how fast is the plane moving horizontally. So we want rate of change of y, right? But at the instant when x is 5. So each of these become important information to decode from the question. And once you've done this, then solving the question overall becomes easier. So completely solve the question, but these would be the steps to decode. So you draw a diagram, define your variables, then identify what information is given in the question, and look at what information, what is the rate of change that you have to find. And important is at what instant. So this would become a strategy to unpack this problem. So you have to go step by step. Now, it's also important to know what the command terms mean. What is draw versus sketch? How are they different? So draw is more formal. Sketch is where you can do a freehand diagram with just the key features showing up appropriately. Prove, show that, verify, the difference should be known. Prove is more formal, where you have to show logical steps. Show that and verify are different from proof. Show that is where you use the information given and algebraically deduce something, algebraically deduce a conclusion. And you cannot use a calculator or graphs for show that question. So that's important. And verify is just evidence to be given that validates the result. For example, if you were to show that 2 is a root of a polynomial or 2 is a root of an equation, then you will have to actually solve that equation and show that 2 comes up as a root. But if it's verified, then you can just substitute 2 into that equation, right? Familiarity with the formula booklet is important. And the biggest red flag that is there is not knowing the content. So top grades cannot be achieved if you have a superficial understanding or you have an incomplete understanding of the content areas. So it's important that you pay attention and know all the syllabus content thoroughly, as was highlighted also in the grade descriptors. I think that's about it, and I'll hand it over to Mrs. Dinga to discuss some tips for success.
Yeah. Thank you, Vibhu. And I think we're just winding up this evening, but I'll just quickly take you through the last few slides. And it'll just take 5 minutes more, I think. 1 minute. So some of these things, of course, these are from examiner notes, and we've tried to show it to through some practical examples. But when you're doing work and practicing, please look at it. The way you practice, the same way you perform. So always practice with the formula booklet, because it will be quite silly to lose your marks because you don't know the formula when it's given to you. Making some kinds of mind maps and summary notes for an exhaustive curriculum is extremely useful, from the basic formulation to check for understanding to medium level problems and some advanced problems. And some of those things which you struggled initially, you can make a note, and just before the exams, make sure that you go back to them and rework them, because that time you might have understood with assistance, but you have to see, do you remember and do you retain? Remember, to master any concept, you need at least 4 to 5 different kinds of practice, and make sure you practice all kinds of problems. It's not that the number of problems only, because there are many questions at the, always as a drill which is given. Choosing those problems meaningfully is extremely important. Anything where you got a feedback and you lost marks, make sure you've super corrected that. Super corrected means look about it, reflect on those different methods. Was there a better way to do it? Was it more efficient? Some of those methods. Make a calculator checklist, which is extremely important, and do lots of mock tests, etc., and keep analyzing your performance and your pattern of understanding and mistakes. Now, some of these things, a quick one, early rounding off to answers, just to summarize, is not a great idea. Create a checklist, yes, it must be done. Not knowing which formula is there in the formula booklet, no. For that, trying to sketch a curve without analyzing the key features, not a great thing. Presenting your answers logically is always very, very important. Not paying attention to the command terms is not a great idea. Again, you have to look carefully what's expected in the question. Keeping track of errors, making strategy notes and summary notes is some of these ideas which are going to be useful.